There we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Hey,
We're
I'm
back.
banking minutes, Rocco. Early, man. 2 minutes. I think I'm about a half hour early now.
We should get a chart for the year and see how many minutes you bank. It's show 2. I think you banked a minute last week and 2, so we got 3 so far.
Oh, man. So I know it sounds like we talked about this last week a lot,
Okay.
but I mean, it was an interesting week. I don't think things moved fast this week. I think news was kind of like heavy, but not real like.
Yeah, we did it last Thursday too, so it's not many days.
Yeah.
between.
There you go. So it's like we lost 2 days.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate that.
Yes.
And the feedback's been amazing. And it isn't because we're looking for complimentary emails. We're getting those. But I mean, we're,
Criticism. I want.
yeah.
that.
I mean, if
We
we're
suck,
barking
tell
up the
us.
wrong trees, pal, let us
Yeah.
know for sure. You
Yeah.
know, it's an unsavory thing, but we have to talk about this
Mhm.
Jeffrey Epstein stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know where to go with that. It's
Clinton.
great.
Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah. I mean, did you doubt that he was going to be on that list?
No, but let me ask you this question. Do you find it fascinating how he has somewhat just rode through the past 25 years and
Mhm.
without any real examination? Is that, and again, is that more symptomatic of his charisma or his Democrat and liberal kind of personality?
I think it's like we talked about last week. It's the 2 sets of rules. When you have the elites at a certain level, I mean, think about the people. Now, again, let's be clear. Like, just because they're on that list does not mean they did anything, right? They're just
Nope.
it was mentioned.
There are
in court
photos of
documents.
him with women, though.
Yeah, so there are certain things right out there, but like just because you were named in the list, all that were people that were in the court documents and everything. So let's just clarify. There's no criminal activities alleged in any of these. However,
no criminal activity.
However, to your point, I think it doesn't shock me that he's got through this. He's a charismatic guy. He's part of the elite. I think there are, in certain instances, 2 sets of.
Isn't it interesting how he basically rose to that? He came out of the backwoods of fucking Arkansas.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when you think about it, like think about some of the most charismatic people. Like they kind of all do that. Like,
Yeah.
they come out of nowhere.
That hokey thing works.
It's not even the hokey thing. It's just they come out of areas that are more laid back, I would say, or
Okay.
less busy. Because if you're a charismatic person in New York, you're around a lot of charismatic people. It's very hard to
You lost in the
rise.
shuffle.
Yeah, you lost in the shuffle. When you're in an area where like charisma stands out, it's easier to elevate yourself. Because again, people don't look at, well, you're charismatic in Arkansas or wherever. It's just like you're a charismatic person. They don't equate it the same way. So I
Sure.
just think he's just truly, he's a smart guy. He's a charismatic guy. He's navigated the political world very well. I mean,
He's an Oxford grad too.
yeah, I mean, you can't fault the guy for
backwoods
just
genius kind of thing going on.
yeah, for getting to
maybe.
where he got in his life. You can't fault him. I mean, he navigated it very well. Now, was I surprised that he was mentioned? No, I don't know what that means,
Yeah,
but
he gives into his vices.
yeah, I think a lot of powerful people do. And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot.
Right.
I think because again, I think power's toxic. And it's not maybe toxic's not the right word.
It's an aphrodisiac for sure.
Yeah,
it
it's
can
definitely
be.
it really
Power corrupts.
absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah,
And
there
it's
you go. That's it.
and it's true. And I think a lot of people use that and they almost think they're invincible. So they do certain things. But then I also think that when people become powerful, they're more prone to be attacked. Like I'm
Okay.
seeing that now in just people I deal with. Like,
How about you? I mean, we're not going to get into the details of it here. It's not appropriate for this forum, but I mean, from what we know about you, I mean, your presence has now grown to the point where, like, you're getting strange attention, right? You're getting strange attention right now.
My photos have been used on like a 1,000 different like dating websites to catfish women, which is crazy. Like, what was it? When we were in our old office in Carnegie, a woman actually called the office to tell me her story, and she sent a guy money that she thought was me. I'm like, sorry, like I don't know what to do. But it's like, it's one of those things where like I have a public profile on social media, so I can't make it private, right? So people do that. It's something I have to learn to deal with.
Yeah.
And but it sucks. Like it's a learning curve how to navigate that. But it's because when people hear that, it's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm literally on 20 dating sites. I'm sure, maybe more than that, because my photo's been taken. Like I have
You're a busy boy.
I have screenshots in my phone of like women that have messaged me on Facebook to let me know this, that they've been catfished. I'm like, I'm sorry. But I also think I'm seeing other business owners that are like, that they're getting attacked. Like, and I'm not making it a male versus female thing, but a lot of male business owners, at least in my circle, have been attacked because of certain things, because they just become a target. And it's, we dealt with a case in the past where an individual was brought into a case and there was nothing that he did, but he had to spend money defending it because it was just brought because of his position and his status. And it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing as you rise.
It's unsavory.
It is. And it's,
but is that part of just necessary cost of doing business and having some success now? That comes with the territory. So sadly
it does. And I think, and that's what I try and tell myself and people that I talk to and advise, and like just close friends of mine. It's like, you have to just understand that comes with the territory and be prepared for it. And I think, like, I always look at, like, I just let it roll off my back. Like, I don't really give a shit what people say. Like, I know who matters to me. I know who doesn't matter to me, and everything else in between is just noise. So I just learned that it's, as a person rises in one, either success or notoriety, there's just certain things that come with that, and you have to just accept it. Back to Clinton. I mean, he navigated it very well. I mean, think about where he's gotten, like the Monica Lewinsky thing. Like, he's going to navigate this Epstein thing too. I'm sure.
Not have sexual relations with that woman.
Right. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, but that's the thing. It's
2 weeks later.
Right. Exactly. It's wild.
Yeah. I think about what would happen today if a situation like the Clintons would happen now with all the media we have now. Could they have kind of like survived that level of scandal in today's world? That's
a good question. And honestly, it depends on who's the powers that be. So I think a lot of that is like, if you are part of the party that the media loves, I think you can set somebody on fire and they'll find a reason to justify it.
I think since the 50s for sure, when the counterculture started to get headway and then somewhat grasp a hold of the mainstream media, you have to say the Democratic / liberal party, liberal thought, liberal philosophy of this country pretty much has a strong hold on what we would consider to be mainstream media in terms of volume.
I would agree. Yeah.
And nothing's changed there.
No, I don't think so. Even they say, like, I used to think, and maybe I'm wrong, that CNN was more middle of the road.
That was a hope.
And I think at first, when years ago, like in the early 2000s, I felt like they definitely were.
Sure.
Like, I watched them all the time.
In the 90s for sure.
Yeah, and then it kind of shifted. And again, like, it's, but again, both sides, like, the media is corrupt, absolutely, in my opinion. Like, it's just they're arms of political parties, in my opinion.
There's just, so my point would be, what I've noticed over the past couple years is where, like, Fox News, every headline talks about Democrat-run cities and all those. I mean, they're being very unvarnished in the way they handle their bias. Right. But MSNBC, coincidentally, is exactly as biased as Fox, just a smaller footprint. But CNN has now almost done the full Monty and gone full liberal. I mean, they're actually, it seems like they're trying to compete with Fox on particular headlines.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And absolutely embrace the liberal Democratic, because they feel like they've got, a solid competition on the other side.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that completely. And that's the thing. Like, it
is what it is.
It is what it is. Like, and that's what I'm realizing about the world. There are certain things, and I hate to say it, that we just have to accept as they are.
That's hard for most Americans. That's a hard
it just
thing
is
to do, no matter what philosophical bent you have.
Yeah, some people will never change. Like, some things are never going to change. Like, you have to just accept it and embrace your own reality.
Is it really the lack of tolerance, though? Or tolerance and acceptance, two different conversations. But I mean, the idea that we can't tolerate things not going our way or people not seeing things the way we see it. And because there's such a huge amount of that kind of like festers the problem.
Well, yeah, because I think people take too much personally when it comes to tolerating stuff like that. So I think there are a lot of people that if you don't agree with me, it's a personal attack at me. And it's like, no, it's just, I don't agree with the statement or the position.
It's an issue.
Right. Exactly. But too many people, and I mean, I think we're all guilty of it.
why do we not have the current facilities in 2024 to deal with that fact more effectively?
Because we are basing too much. And I had this conversation earlier today with Mike. He was telling me a situation he had dealt with, that this individual was telling him that, well, feelings should be the focus. Like, we should focus on people's feelings. Like, he was talking about a business transaction.
In business?
And he was saying, like, well, and this person was telling him, well, you need to adapt. The world has changed.
It's the new paradigm.
It's a new paradigm. Feelings first. And I'm like, no way. Like, that's like how
you can't run the world.
The way you feel is your problem. Like, that's what from a like that's truly it.
Personal.
Like, yeah, but I think that's why we are where we are, right? People are intolerant of differing opinions because it makes them feel something, and that feeling they attach to the person, and that's an attack. So if you don't agree with me,
an elevated importance level.
Yeah, if you don't agree with me, it makes me feel pissed or upset, and you caused me to feel that way. Therefore, I don't like you. Therefore, you are the cause of my problems.
So we're like legislating that way for like 20 years.
Yeah,
especially the last 10-ish years for sure.
Yeah, like, we need to get past, like, people's feelings matter. And if you're intentionally trying to hurt somebody's feelings, it's one thing. That's wrong. But if you just feel a certain way because I disagree with you, or I conduct myself a certain way that you don't agree with, that's your problem, not mine. Like, that's where I am.
Let me ask you a tough question.
Okay.
Do you think that whether it was intentional or not, the result ultimately of Donald Trump's 4 years, do you think he kicked the bear in that regards? Because he pushed people who disagree with him philosophically on a lot of things. He would push their limits. Like, he was a very antagonistic person, the way he handled his business.
Yes.
Do you think that help proliferate the idea that feelings are so important and this guy doesn't get it and fuck him and blah, 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 blah.
I think that was definitely part of it. I think that was a big reason why they did everything they could to get him out. Because if you look at it, and again, like, I'll challenge anybody on this objectively. Take personality in personal conduct aside, right? Policy versus policy. Issue versus issue. There's no comparison.
But are we sophisticated enough
to actually do that? I don't know. But I'm saying, like, that's what I would challenge. If you're willing to have that debate and go issue by issue, economy, where we are to where we were, hands down,
law
there's
enforcement,
everything.
Military.
It's like, but I get, like, if we're leading the discussion with feelings and making sure people feel okay and safe and not offended, he's going to lose every day of the week. Because he doesn't give a shit about that. He operates differently, right? He operates old school. Before the 1%er and the Occupy Wall Street movement. Because that's kind of when all this shit started happening, right? We started doing the Occupy Wall Street, and the elites are like, oh shit.
It's a very good point. That's an upcoming podcast.
But that's the truth. Like,
I think that's where it's rooted.
That's really where it is.
08, 09.
Yeah, like, and I started looking into that and I'm like, yeah, that's like, none of this shit was talked about before that. And that was a way, in my opinion, for the elites to divert the attention from them to make the masses fight one another.
It was a gateway.
Yeah, I mean, it really was, and that's the thing. So yeah, in a culture, in a society where we are pushing that feelings are the front and center of everything, Donald Trump loses every day of the week.
So it sounds like to me that we've also lost the ability to understand the idea of proportionality in society.
Yeah, you think? I mean, proportionality in anything.
In everything.
Like just think about Americans' diet. Like, proportionality of what? Like, we can triple supersize everything. Like, I can get a drink that's like this big, right? I
call it Biggie size, right? Wendy's, right?
Biggie, Biggie supersize it,
Biggie fries.
Yeah, Biggie fries. But that's the thing. Like, we are a gluttonous society.
Yeah,
from physical to mental.
But I think we also don't have a great understanding of looking at issues from a proportionality standpoint. Like, if someone's got a view, that's one view that you may vehemently disagree with, but there's all these other elements of that person's charisma and character and personality that you're now going to flush down a toilet because you just like one thing.
Because that one thing made them feel a certain way. And so now they equate that feeling with the person, not the issue.
Which is nuts.
That's the problem, right?
It's
when you
nuts.
think about, but I agree, but that's really what's happening, right? If you may have the best ideas in the world, But if there's one that someone doesn't like and it makes them feel a certain way, like you've attacked me, like that goes against my sensibilities. I don't like you. I don't give a shit about all the other great ideas you have. Like that's what happened with Trump. Like he did good things. There were a couple things he did wrong. And because of those wrongs, no one gave him credit for the rights. That's the problem. We can't bifurcate the issues anymore.
What if, do you ever think about this? Like, what if a portion of the people that truly despise the man are simply people that are intimidated by truth?
Great.
Any truth, but particularly this truth. And he's a truth bringer on certain issues in a very unvarnished way, which often is so elemental. If you just open your eyes and pay attention to the reality around you, the truth was pretty obvious, but he was bringing it to you front and center with this ball peen hammer, just banging you on the forehead. And because of that uncomfortableness, because you don't want to deal with that, you then just decide to tear the guy apart because he's the worst human being walking the planet because you are personally uncomfortable. Fuck offended. You are uncomfortable. Your state has been disrupted, and now you are uncomfortable in your society that you believe that your feelings provide you to you should always be comfortable. I should always feel safe. I should always, you start convoluting the idea of safe with being uncomfortable or safe with someone disagreeing with you. That whole amalgamation of bullshit is fucking up society, man. In a bad way.
I agree. And here's how I look at it. I think, and this is just my observation of society. If you are a secure individual, secure in yourself and who you are, you don't give a shit. Like, I don't give a shit about that. It's people get so bent out of shape about the truth because they haven't dealt with their own shit. They get offended. They get offended. Like, there's no one that really offends me because I know who I am. I know what I care about.
I'm unoffendable.
The people that don't like other people or get offended by other people have their own shit they haven't dealt with. And that person is the mirror to what they don't like about themselves. Like,
think about it. If we were all working on our own unresolved shit and really working on it, we wouldn't really have the time to be paying attention to what everybody else is doing. Especially things we agree with. I mean, indifference would run wild and beautifully wild if we would just concentrate on our own self-improvement.
Well, and I look at my own journey through that self-improvement process. It's, in the past, there were things that would piss me off and trigger me, or people. And it's like, when I looked at it, it's like, that's because they were the mirror to my own inadequacies. They were holding up the mirror in front of me, like, this is what's wrong, dude. Get your shit together. But I wasn't looking at it that way until I did that self-assessment and went through that like journey of the
I used
soul.
to call that the self-flush, man.
It really was.
But people don't want to
do it. It's hard. It's hard.
No.
But that's what I found. Like, I think so. Trump was a mirror to a lot of people's inadequacies. Like, he was making people see what was really there, and they didn't like it.
Well, the reality is, if you really want to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, he should be embraced by most humans, because here is a very imperfect human, with all his warts on display, and holding up that mirror, it is a reflection of most of us,
Exactly.
We just hide in the shadows and keep our sins quiet because we're humiliated by them.
Like, again,
he's not
like, and that's what I loved about him. It's like unapologetic. And like, if more people were like that, just unapologetic, I don't have to please anybody. You don't have to please anybody. As long as I'm happy with myself and who my God is and who my family and my family is and the people that matter to me, that's all that matters. It's not a requirement for me to please everybody. And if people would just look at the world that way, it would be a lot easier.
Well, that's like I've always admired. Like, there's always been, although philosophically I might not agree with much of their ideas, but there's some on the left that are so unabashed and so unapologetic of their beliefs. I've always admired them. I mean, there's elements of things that Reverend Al Sharpton has said in some of his speeches. They like that is so straight on. There's a bunch of people that I've liked, although philosophically you'd be hard pressed to find an issue I agree with, but there's no bullshit with them. We can disagree 1,000,000%.
And I love people like that. I respect that completely.
But I mean, it doesn't matter as long as it's authentic.
That's it. Like, that's it. I think too many people today.
Like Cornel West. I mean, I could listen to him talk all day.
Yeah.
Probably won't find much I agree on, but man, is he
Right.
tell it like it is.
And that's the thing. If more people would just do that, like
Yep.
tell it like it is and address things as they are,
100%.
instead of trying to put up a front, life gets a lot easier.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. To get back to the
Epstein.
well,
we took a big right
no,
turn
let's
there,
just
man.
move. Let's move on to that a little bit. So I don't really understand exactly all that's going on with the Trump asking for immunity because he was president in regards to the election fraud stuff. So there's an appellate court right now in New York looking at that, or is it? Again, there's so many lawsuits. I'm confused now. That's more of a Georgia-based thing in regards to the all election issue, or is that about his personal assets in New York? That can't be about the state trial. It had to be the federal trial.
Yeah, I think it's federal.
But there is an appellate court right now considering whether or not he's immune from the charges because he was a sitting president when it happened. So it's going to be a fascinating ruling.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of interesting rulings that I think come down soon from just the different courts. It's going to be interesting. And again, it's so hard to keep up with everything. And I'm a lawyer, right? And it's so hard for me to keep up with half this stuff.
Especially because you're not getting compensated on this case.
Right. I mean, there's so many cases.
Mental energy.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental energy. Absolutely.
Another thing too, I noticed is like again, it depends on what media you're listening to, but I intentionally try to get all sides. Like CNN, MSNBC, The Atlantic, Politico, things that generally lean like they some claim to be moderate, they lean kind of left, which is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But you got to really, if you really want to get to the idea that you have enough facts that you can make your own decisions, you've got to get news from multiple sources. And again, I'm not requesting anybody do this. It's time consuming. I'm probably an idiot for doing it. But when I hear something outrageous, I try to go find 5 or 6 sources of it and then try to find out, did that actually happen?
Right.
My point is, when you hear like one of the websites I go to frequently, because it used to be conservative and now it leans liberal. It's called the Drudge Report.
Yeah.
Very big website. They constant comments that Trump said this and he's going to take care of this and he's going to enact a lawsuit as soon as he gets elected and this, and there's all this summation of a speech comes to a summation of 1 or 2 sentences, and that's the headline. And I guess my point is, we're insane if we're taking these one headlines like doing and believing wholeheartedly that's the truth and that's my narrative and that's what my belief system is going to be based on. It's not the whole story, and oftentimes it's not even actually factually true.
Right. I think I mean that should be your default when you read the news now or watch the news. Like, this isn't true. How do I discern truth from it? Like, this is a spin. It's sensationalism. It's not journalism.
It's tabloidish. Yes.
I mean, that's really it. I think so. It does take, and again, that comes down to independent thought, like being able to have independent critical thinking ability. And I think we just lost that. But there's too much information. There's too much information coming at us.
It's almost necessary, though, even to intelligently or try to intelligently maneuver based upon what you're being force fed.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. But I don't think people are doing it.
Time, interests, indifference.
I think all of the above.
Video games.
Well, I mean, think about how much information comes at us every day. Like, so it's once you find something that kind of resonates with you, you just take that as truth.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to spend more time investigating. Like, okay, it's a news station or it's a news website. This is probably legit. This kind of lines up with my sensibilities and my gut instinct. This must be true. And people just go with that. Like, that's true that I believe happens a lot of times. Like, it's just easier to do that than to actually investigate. Because think about trying to investigate something on the internet. You start clicking through shit, you don't know where you're going to end up.
And you question yourself if the moon landing actually happened.
Yeah,
by the time you're done.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things I questioned out when I get on these rabbit holes. I'm like, oh,
you're welcome.
There are definitely aliens. There was an alien in the Miami Mall. Like, did you hear that? Like,
there's what?
You didn't see that? Like,
I must have missed it.
First of all, there was I think it was earlier this week or last week. They said they shut down a mall in Miami. There's all these cops, and there was photos online saying there was like this 10-foot alien walking around.
Oh, I gotta see this.
Now the police said no, it was just kids having a fireworks fight in the mall. That's why there was like all 20 cop cars.
That sounds funny. You're saying kids had a fireworks
fight? There was a fight in the mall and they were shooting off fireworks or something in the Miami Mall. That was a story. And they said, oh, this is fake. It's not aliens. But there was photos online, this gray thing walking by the police cars. Now, who knows what it could be doctored up. However, The Simpsons, I don't know how true this is, but again,
they predict everything, don't they?
But again, they predicted apparently the tsunami in Japan that just happened and this fucking Miami alien thing on these episodes. Because again, I watched this video.
They predicted Trump's presidency first.
They predicted a lot of shit, man. Like a lot of shit. And I'm like, wow. So I question everything now. Like, I don't even know what to believe anymore. I mean, are you an alien? You may be an alien.
Could be.
I mean, you could be one. And I mean, who knows, man?
Well,
but it's hard because there's so much information.
The government has admitted a lot of sketchy stuff over the past couple of years here.
There's a lot. What I'm learning now, just because I went down these rabbit holes because you like somehow led me to this path.
Sorry.
So instead of going to bed, I sit there and like, well, let me see what else about UFOs I could find. And maybe the Earth is flat. Like, who knows? But there's a lot of stuff out there that I just don't think, unless you're looking for it, you have no idea what's going on in the world.
No.
Like there's a ton of shit out there. Like if you really want to investigate like how much shady shit has happened, there's a lot.
Well, when you see things like, so when you see this Epstein thing and the onion starts to get peeled back, you can't blame people for then start questioning all kinds of stuff like 9/11, and some of it's far out there.
Yeah.
I can't get there personally, but you can't blame people for being more and more interested in quote unquote conspiracies when you start to see real live bullshit being unfolded.
Yeah.
Whether it's UFOs, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein, whatever it is, these are things the elite has kept under wraps. Yeah. And the government's telling us now, well, we've had this alien spaceship since the 40s, and we've kind of like been, in this place we've been storing it does exist, but you can't go in.
Right.
And it's like, hello.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Now everything's on the table.
Exactly. When you sit there and say we had a UFO for like 80 years, but you can't see it. Like what do you want? What do you want the common person, the common man to believe?
I don't know, man. I mean,
well, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, think about all the shit that's out there. There's so much stuff we don't even know about. Like, are we the only people out there? There's
no.
Did you hear about
we're not.
Did you hear about the Black Knight satellite?
Oh yeah.
Like I just learned about this. I'm like, well, how come I didn't know anything about this?
It circles like every so often. Well, how about
the latest, been monitoring Earth apparently?
How about the latest one that it's like Umaguma or something? The old Pink Floyd album. I always say Umaguma, but it's called something else. But it's like this. I think it's this huge, oddly shaped meteor that like came out of another solar system and came into our solar system.
Okay,
but now it's making this big circle and it's coming back, and they don't know. I mean. There's look, we're not going to waste the whole show on this, but there's plenty of other podcast shows to do about UFOs. But ultimately, the fact that you said a long time ago when we were in the middle of the pandemic, you said the fact that after a year of this fucking pandemic, they announced that there's UFOs and no one cares.
Right.
It's the perfect tsunami to screw with the people because their minds are everywhere else.
Yeah. That was when the
like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you couldn't do this because the whole world would be focused on this one thing.
Exactly. There's like, oh, UFOs, cool. When do we get to leave our house? That's really what it was. Because I was the same way. I was like, I think there's UFOs. I saw an article, but I'm more concerned. When is Allegheny County going green? Like, when can I go to a restaurant and eat fucking tacos? Like, when can I do that? UFOs, can the UFOs change Allegheny County to green? That's all I cared about at that point in time. Like, it's crazy.
All right, back to Haley.
Okay.
Because she's like, in certain states, she's making a presence here. Do you think she's got a chance of being the VP? Because I kind of hope so.
I think so. I think the VP, not the candidate. No way.
I don't think that she will either. But I mean, Trump has that scorched earth policy. I could see him also going and grabbing someone that did not challenge him in the primary because he can't stand people to challenge him.
I think so. If Trump is a nominee, I think he has to be strategic.
I would think.
I mean, he's got to
hope.
Yeah, you would hope.
If you're trying to take Biden out, I would hope that the opposition would have a strategy to do so.
Yeah, but I think part of the strategy is who's going to be the best for the next term.
Well, okay. Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because, if you apply that strategy to what the Democrats just did 4 years ago, you're trying to tell me that Kamala Harris was the strategy was that she would be the best for the next 4 years?
They weren't. No, I'm saying the next. So they weren't. So the Democrat strategy, in my opinion, was not looking next term. They were looking get Trump out. What was the easiest path to get
so
Trump
the next
out?
4 years after that, they didn't care about.
They weren't even thinking about it at that
Here
point.
we
in time.
are.
But here we are. Right. Exactly. What I'm saying is Trump needs to pick a VP that can be set up for
Only go
success.
one term.
Yeah, because he only got one term. So he's going to go in and go scorched earth on everything establishment wise. But he's also needs to have a VP that one can temper him a little bit, can make sure
Who the hell could do that?
I don't know. That's I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I love the Vivek guy. Like I like him. I don't know if he'd be the right
I
guy.
don't think Trump would listen to him.
I
Too young. Almost
so
too young.
I think he would, because here's why. I think he hasn't attacked Trump at all, right?
No.
He's not sided with Trump, but he's agreed with a lot of things. I think he's a smart dude, like a smart guy. I think he has embraced whether it's political theater or not. I think I've seen him on podcasts you would never see other political parties on.
No, I think he's pretty accomplished, and I also think he's well spoken.
And I think he's talking to the common man.
Yeah,
like he's going on podcasts of like young entrepreneurs that like talk to like YouTube influencers.
He hasn't been here yet.
Well, have you tried?
Maybe you want to try.
That's what I'm saying. But he's going on things like that and just talking straight with people.
Yeah,
which I find interesting and kind of endearing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why, like, I don't think he's the right guy for the presidency right now.
Well, I think the math. I mean, Haley makes sense from a mathematical standpoint.
From a math standpoint, sure, maybe, but I just there's something I like, but I don't know enough about him yet to find a fault in him. But I like what I know so far.
So how about if Haley runs and then we'll put him in charge of the border buyback?
Yeah, I mean,
make him the borders.
Just close the fucking border. How about that? It shouldn't be that
obviously
hard.
It's very difficult. What you've been witnessing the
is
past
it though?
4 years.
Is it though? I mean,
I don't know. You
I
wouldn't.
Feel like
you
it
wouldn't
shouldn't be that difficult.
So
no, it shouldn't be that difficult, in my opinion.
Because remember, according to Mayorkas, it's not an emergency.
Oh my God,
it's not a crisis.
Then what is a crisis?
I don't know. I mean, and you know, without all the hyperbole, if I ever was aware in my lifetime, one particular federal employee on a national stage who deserved to be impeached or removed, it's been that man.
Absolutely.
So delusional. Absolutely effing delusional.
Right. Yes.
I mean, and I mean, Democrats have to be laughing. They will never admit it on paper. When they hear him talk, they have to be going, "Oh my God, he's getting away with it."
Yeah,
because they've gotten away with it.
They absolutely have.
To this point, we've basically opened the gates.
Yeah.
And let everybody just come in, and they keep getting away with it.
Yeah, 100%.
And we're yelling and screaming like the average Joe's yelling and screaming, but they're getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Influx of a couple million more, hopefully liberal votes for them. I mean, that's what's going on.
That's exactly right.
Honestly. It's not about taking care of these migrants. It's not about that. We can't take care of our own fucking vets that are displaced.
Right.
And our own homeless people are displaced, you know? I mean, we can't take care of those people.
I agree.
But you know, we're going to take care of these migrants that are being encouraged to come walk all the way through or bus all the way through or take trains all the way through Mexico somehow. When I thought the Mexican southern border with Guatemala, apologize if it's not, whoever their southern border is, I heard that is just shut down.
Yeah,
these people just keep coming though. Where are they coming from?
Well, again,
where are they landing from?
It's a crisis. It's a crisis. Let's just call it like it is. But they don't.
I'm no expert. I'm just observing shit.
Yeah,
pretty sketchy to me.
Definitely is.
Yeah. How about this one? So apparently they're starving for police officers in San Francisco. Big surprise, right?
Don't say.
They can't find people to work. And again, it's West Coast now. They can't find people to work with a starting salary of $112. They can't find people to work.
Oh. I mean, well, work the job of a police officer.
Become the police officer, starting salary of $112.
Yeah, but look at that. But when you
cost of living, I know.
Well, not even the cost of living. When you have, we can just let crime happen.
Yeah, you think it's a culture.
I mean, how would you want to be a police officer if you
obviously they don't want to be?
That's what I'm saying. Because they're just letting crime happen. Like, to me, if we had a law and order government, like there's laws for a reason, right? To provide order and prevent chaos. Like that's the whole point of a legal system and having it's not a way to discriminate against people. It's like we have rules, don't break the rules. That's it. But here now it's like, well, do we have rules? Or well, let's let them break these rules because these really don't matter. These are crimes that
they're
they
just
shouldn't
expressing themselves.
Right. Expressing what? Like what the fuck?
Because they're entitled to do so because of some injustice from a century ago. I guess. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, we can all find injustices in our path. I mean, I'm Irish, so we came over from the potato famine, and I guess we were treated pretty horribly. I don't know. I'm not attached to those relatives. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I mean, San Francisco, we've both been there multiple times in our life. I was there when things weren't quite as bad 30 and 22 years ago when it was amazing.
Yeah.
But I went there for a baseball game a couple years ago too and drove from San Francisco airport to Oakland, which I wasn't, driving to the greatest location. But the homelessness and all that right before the pandemic, back then it was crazy.
Yeah, completely crazy. Like I don't know how it got that bad. Like it's just
walking from the Oakland Coliseum to our hotel. My son and I were like really had our heads on a swivel.
Yeah, I mean it's not great out there. I was out there in like the mid 2000s. It was beautiful. Like there wasn't hardly any of that stuff. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I don't know. So did you see that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin got some prostate cancer treatment on the 1st of January? I guess the president did not know, or any of the federal employees around the president didn't know for like 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Interesting.
So the thing was that he went under the knife or under the treatment. The defense secretary.
Yeah.
We have all this shit going on.
Right. Yeah. Like how does
he
that
disappears and doesn't tell anybody?
Why?
And I wish him all the health and God bless him. I mean, it's not about him personally. I just don't know as a taxpayer that I like what I'm hearing that guy is out of commission and no one's talking about it. The public's definitely not being informed. No news service is being informed. So now we're playing catch up.
I didn't even hear that.
It's weird. Very strange.
And to me, it's like, I feel like if you're that high level of a ranking official in an administration, you should probably let your boss know, I'm going to be out for a few days. And by the way, it's for surgery. Like that to me is
and when you hear
like a no-brainer.
I personally really like the guy. When you listen to him talking, I think, he gives. Some people just have a professional presence, even if you don't know a lot about their position or what they do. When you hear him talk, especially in regards to all the international conflict now, I felt you have that calming, like this guy's got it under control.
Yeah.
Who knows if it really does or not, but it gives you the illusion maybe that he has it under control.
I will say that was Andrew Cuomo during the pandemic.
There you go.
Like it was the same thing with him.
Example.
Not the greatest example, but it's true. Like he was a person that he seemed like initially had it under control.
Yeah. So another interesting Californian thing, I just found this fascinating. So I'm going to read this because I want to make sure I don't screw it up.
Okay.
Lawmakers in the California State Assembly Revenue and Taxation Committee are dusting off Democratic Assemblyman Alex Lee's Assembly Bill 259, which went nowhere when it was first introduced in 2023. Mm-hmm. The measure would impose a 1.5% tax on the assets of Californians with a worldwide net worth of $1 billion as soon as 2024, and a 1% tax on those who are net worth of $50 million by 2026. The hearing is set for Wednesday. So
they said individuals, not companies?
Just your individuals. I know your head's going to want to explode in a second. Well, before you go there, I hate tax of any kind. Okay. I just do. The problem with this headline, the problem with the story is that my guess is the average person won't spend a couple minutes to think it through and ask the next question and the next question. It only takes like 2 more levels.
Okay.
If you get there to understand, ask why those people are being penalized for their success.
Right.
You will get to the conversation. Well, if they can easily do that, it's going to start trickling down, and more of these are going to come down to the common people. If it was so easy to tax, think about it. If it's so easy to punitively tax the ultra wealthy, which puts them in the elite class, if they can get taxed like that, then we don't have a chance. We don't, as a common folk, it's a matter of time before they start exercising more punitive taxes on us. But again, the narrative about why do we tax punitively in this country that the more successful you are, the more the government wants to hurt you and penalize you for it. It's nuts to me.
Well,
Totally nuts.
We should. That's why I either say we should have a flat tax or a national
A
sales
million
tax.
percent. A million.
It simplifies the system. It's like
there's
again,
a great example, but no one's going to care because no one. Fuck them millionaires.
Well, right, until they become a billionaire, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, why do I got to give 1.5%?
Or if they even just accumulate more wealth where they get into the highest tax bracket.
Yeah, and that's my thing. And that's the problem I have with it. Like, I'm all for paying my fair share of taxes, right? Like, I'm all, but if I in something like that, like if I knew that like say the federal government instituted a tax like that, and it was purely for deficit reduction, and that's all it could go to. Okay, I'm fine with that. Like, I don't want my kids to be burdened with it. No, but what I'm saying is, if there was a way to know that there's going to be a punitive tax put in place. Well, I know, but what I'm saying is, I'm saying conceptually, if there was a way, if there was a tax that was put in place that was what we deem punitive, but it was for a specific purpose that would set my children up better than me.
Sure.
I'd be fine paying that tax.
Faith in.
I'd have faith in the system and paying it. The problem I have with taxes is there's so much waste in government and so much frivolous spending that they're just taking more money and perpetuating the problem. Our deficit's going up. They're spending money on stupid shit, and they just keep taxing. We can't tax our way out of a problem. Like you can't tax your way out of the problem.
Oh, we tried to tax our way out of the pandemic.
But you can't. I mean, think about it. Let's be realistic. Most business people that are making that much money are smarter than the government. There's a tax code, thousands of pages. Income is described on the first couple. Deductions from income is the rest of the book.
Exactly right.
So that's how you got to look at it. Like, income is this. There's all this thousands of pages of tax code. What is not income or considered a deduction from income?
Created over decades through special interests.
Right. So if you know how to maneuver the tax code, you can legally reduce your taxes to almost zero.
And it's created a whole cottage industry of tax preparers because it's special knowledge they have to have.
Well, and it's like, I mean, think about if you're a W-2 worker, like you're a doctor that makes W-2 income, you go buy a short-term rental and you do a cost segregation study, you can offset your W-2 income that you're not pay any taxes, make $500,000 a year as a doctor, and somehow not pay any taxes.
Right.
The tax code allows you to do that. That's a just a 30,000 foot example.
Sure.
But again, like we can't tax out of a problem. And taxing the rich, to me, I don't believe in a punitive tax system. Like, we have a progressive tax system that is a punishment system. It really is. The more money you make, the more you pay in tax.
So why do you think we have that, and why has it existed all these decades?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. That's hard. That's
Fascinating to me.
Yeah, because again, I think because a lot of the elite have figured out a way to, because when you think about earned income, right? That's where the progressive tax system is played. Capital gains taxes and investment income is taxed differently. Absolutely. A lot of these wealthy people are not taking an income. They're taking capital gains, or they're leveraging their assets to pay themselves. They're borrowing money against their portfolio and taking a dollar salary. So they're not paying taxes, or they're doing it through real estate and taking they're legally doing it, right? The people that get hurt the most by the tax code are the middle class. When you really look at it, right? The tax code hurts the middle class because they're the W-2 workers. Mm-hmm. If I make $70,000 a year, I pay X. If I make $270,000, I pay a lot more as a W-2 earner, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm a business owner, I can change that. I can pay myself a lot less than salary, pay profits, and have a whole different tax structure. And people don't look at it that way. They're like, tax the rich, tax the rich. Well, how? The rich are not taking salaries. They're doing different things. If we keep increasing taxes, it's only hurting the people that are complaining about taxing the rich.
Under the current system.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, no one thinks about it and understands how it actually applies. If we keep increasing tax rates and say it only affects the rich, it doesn't.
Exactly right.
It affects the middle class mostly.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's fascinating to me too, that conceptually, the system is actually rigged to penalize success.
100%. That's a progressive system.
But it's so hard to explain that to a lot of people because it's human ego or jealousy or greed or just indifference. I don't know what it is, but so many people on both sides of the aisles over the years and all the reading I've done and the discussions I've had is like a lot of people, even staunch conservatives, they're actually okay. And I think it comes down to just human jealousy, you know, the festers that, well, you know, F him, he's making like $175,000 a year. Why should I care about his? Well, those are the people, you know, many of them that generate jobs, that start businesses.
Right.
I say we actually penalize our small to mid-sized business people more than anyone in this country through the government, through taxation, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like, I mean, just the taxes we pay as a business. I mean, absolutely. And I think, and people don't look at it that way. They're always like, you know, screw them. They could pay it. It's like, okay, well, the more you tax us, the more we're going to figure out ways to do things that we don't have to pay the tax. Like, that's just how it works.
Hiring.
Less hiring. Exactly. Prices go up. Because I mean, if you look at like when Obamacare tax came in, like when they were taxing tanning salons and all that other BS, I owned salons at the time with a business partner. All we did was pass the cost on. Like, we just made the consumer, like, people are, of course, like, we're not going to eat the tax. Of course. And it's like, people aren't looking at it that way. Prices go up. If a business has to pay more in taxes, okay, your hamburger that was $6 is now $7.25. Why is that?
The consumer always pays.
Exactly, always, and people don't look at it that way. They're not thinking about it.
It takes a while from the action of initiating the tax and then getting it passed. It's a matter of months before it starts to be reflected in their daily lives.
Right.
It's not immediate. Had it be immediate, we maybe learn our lesson over time, but everything moves so slow.
Yeah, it's a slow burn. It's a slow burn effect.
Slow burn. Yeah, taxation is the one thing that just, I think a lot of Americans honestly believe in their heart of hearts that if you make more money, you should pay a higher percentage. Now, if you're all paying a flat number, those who make more money are going to pay more money naturally.
Right.
But it's a more equitable system.
Yeah.
And would also, I think, encourage more growth within small to mid-sized businesses.
Yeah.
For sure.
100%. 100%. Or you do the national sales tax, where it's a consumption-based tax.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, wealthier people consume more. They're going to buy luxury goods. Like, they're going to buy things that they're going to pay that 27% tax on.
Luxury tax. Like, why?
Because again, the lobby, it takes away CPAs, it takes away tax people. Because if it's literally, I'm just paying it based upon what I buy, I don't have to file a tax return, right? I'm just paying the tax to the flat tax. There's less. What do I need a CPA for? Here's my number I made. Here's the tax I pay. I don't got to figure it out. It's just a flat tax. I think there's a whole industry behind it.
Yeah, and there's a cottage industry of tax preparation that the average Joe would not need if we could do it all on a 3.5 by 5 index card.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, but so the reason that it's not done is do you think it's just part of keeping the machine of the IRS and all the employees and all the costs, just keep it rolling along for job protections and political appointments and people taking care of the voters and that got those jobs?
Yeah, because think about if you eliminate that, you eliminate a huge portion of the economy. Like, if you said, "Hey, we're going to eliminate the tax code and go to a consumption-based tax,"
we'd survive, right? I mean,
but people don't think long term. They're only thinking about the next year, the next 5 years, and to me, I don't think it'll ever change in our lifetime.
Short-term view.
Yeah, it's a short-term view, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm not criticizing people for thinking that way. I think we're all kind of wired, for immediacy. I get it totally, but. Yeah, the taxation thing is just, and it's so funny because I used to think it would pit, Democrats versus Republicans, liberals versus conservatives, and it really doesn't. I mean, I really think that most people are brainwashed into believing, like, why shouldn't Elon Musk pay 50% of his wage? FM, where does that? So that statement, which is a lot of Americans believe that, where does that come from? Like, in here, it's got to be rooted from jealousy. It has to be.
I believe it is.
Has to be.
What else would it come from? And again, that's people having a negative viewpoint. It's people having a negative viewpoint of the world. They're looking at what they don't have instead of that. To me, I look at, like, if someone, that means it's possible. Like if someone makes that much money, that means it's possible. I just need to
They
find a
did
way
it.
to do it.
They did it.
Right. That's just, to me, I look at that, that's inspirational to me. If someone's a billionaire and they created something out of nothing, that's inspirational. Like I
Absolutely.
applaud that person. Like I want to find a way to do that. Because if I can make that much money, how many more people can I help?
But this is where Rocco and I've had this conversation so many times off air. We're going to talk about it again because we're 10 years apart, different stories and so forth. This is where we have an understanding, but we're both at different positions in our lives. Like I am of the belief that I admire so many, including this gentleman. I admire so many people that are creating organizations and creating and doing this dynamic shit. But the spoils of it are never like a source of envy for me. Like I've always like been at peace with, like, I've had opportunities, some worked, some didn't. I really am comfortable with my being of who I am.
Yeah.
I think that, and that doesn't make me special, but what I do is I watch so many people that are just ruled by envy.
Yeah.
And you don't always have to lust after what someone else achieves or earns. You can be comfortable in your own skin and realize that I like my lot in life. And I guess my point is, if people were more comfortable in their lot in life and what they've created and where they want to go, and in their own, they're living their life out of their own volition. If they're more comfortable with that, then the idea of being envious of other people would not be at the forefront of every fucking thing they did.
Well, no, I mean, look,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. To me, envy is a weak mindset. I look at it that way. Like if you are envious of others, that means I don't want to say you're weak minded, but I just think there's something going on there. Like I've never been envious. I've always looked at other people that have more. Like that's inspiration. Like how do I do that? Like how do I figure that out?
Right?
Because I know what I know what I am. I know what I'm capable of. I know what matters to me. I know what I can do. And if someone has created, like I started the law firm out of nothing, did not do it, just said, fuck it, I'm going to jump and just figure it out. Like
exactly.
Most days I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just figuring out as I go. But I look at, okay, other people have created billion-dollar law firms. Like that's inspiring me. Like how do I get my name on that building?
Exactly.
How do I build a firm like that? And then it's a challenge.
Because you have a desire to do that.
Correct. Like, yes, like, like for you and I are different. Like you love where you are and you're good with that. Like I think envy comes from people haven't taken the assessment of themselves to understand what matters to them. Like what do they truly,
maybe not all have taken stock in their own experiences in life.
Correct. Like too many people are so focused on external things. To me, when you get really comfortable with the internal, like the internal validation, like what you're really about and who you truly are as a person, the external doesn't really fucking matter. Because to me, it's like once I figured, and that was a long journey for me, right? Like once I figured out who I was, like the good and the bad, the good and the dark side of myself, and just came to terms with that, life got very simple because now I know what matters and I know what doesn't. Of course. And I think most people aren't willing to go down that rabbit hole or that journey, and envy pops up. Like those negative emotions pop up because they haven't dealt with them, right? If you haven't dealt with your dark side, then you feel the dark side emotions of envy, jealousy, lust, pride, like hate, like all that stuff. When you deal with the dark side emotions and you understand what they're about and how to channel it differently, I don't give a shit.
Why can't we be more happy for the success of others, strangers or friends? Why is that?
You can be if you're happy with yourself. Until you're happy with yourself, you can't be happy with anybody else.
I completely agree, but why are so many what seems to be almost incapable of being happy for others or the success of others?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Like, I don't know, because I wonder that sometimes. Like, again, like I talked about on a video that I posted, and a client of mine, we were talking the other day, and he's like, I saw that video, and he's like, yeah, I was saying like must be nice. Like people say it to me, like must be nice. I'm like, fuck you. Like I busted my ass for 20 years. Like you didn't see the sleepless nights and the oh shit moments I had. Like I don't know. Like I think that they can't be happy for someone else until they're happy with themselves, because your worldview is skewed, right? Until you find happiness with yourself in your own station in life, you can't see happiness for someone else. I was that way until I found true happiness in myself and who I was and where I was. I couldn't, not that I wasn't happy for the people, but I wasn't looking at that way.
Like I was in a race.
Yeah,
when you were younger.
When I was in my 20s, I was definitely competing. I was like, fuck it, I'm competing with everything and everybody. Like that was it. 30s, I started to figure it out, like who I was as a man. It's like, okay, like 30s are my year to learn about me. right? Like that
But
was
who was the race against, if you have to unwind it?
I don't know.
Who did you think it was back then?
Everybody that told me I couldn't do it.
Okay.
Like where I came from, how I grew up.
Okay.
Everybody that said I couldn't do it. And to me, it was like, I'm racing to prove the world fucking wrong.
Okay.
Now I'm in a race, but to me, my race is not the legacy I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want something to live
it's
on
usually
past.
Fine now.
Yeah, I want something to live on past my death.
Right.
And in my race now is like when my kids, you know, are proud of what I've done. Like that's what motivates you. That's what I'm racing for.
Right.
But it took a while to get to that and change that perspective. Like I had to look at things differently. And I think you have to go through that race against others. I think that's part of life. That's part of the human experience of the competing, especially if you're an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur and you're driven by success and you want to make something of yourself, there's going to be a part of that journey where you're competing against something else or something.
Certainly. Until
you realize you don't have to. And then you find the real why of why you're doing it. And that's what people have to do. And they don't do that work to figure it out. So they're always feeling that they're competing. And I can't be happy with this person because they're ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because they haven't figured out why they're truly doing what they're doing.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's very good too. I think also it's funny because I think when you're younger, you set off on the journey, you feel like you're in a race and you're in competition with not only just certain people, but almost everyone in life. You're literally in a competition with life.
You go to a bar, you're competing with every other dude there to get the girl or to do that.
Everything's a competition.
Everything's a competition.
Yeah. And it's funny. Like I can see where you're at now. I'm guessing it's kind of like it's like you're running this race, but the beautiful part about it is the road that you're running on and you will continue to run on has been user defined. It's been defined by yourself and your own goals and your own wants.
Yeah.
And I think that's conceptual, but I think a lot of, and we're all guilty. I mean, I couldn't in the early years, I knew I was racing and I was laughing as you were saying that before, because I remember having this moment with myself early on when I had this guitar design that hit. And then I noticed a couple other dealers with a couple other manufacturers were going to try this similar idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how dare they? I created this.
Right.
It was just an idea.
Right.
But how dare they?
Right.
And all of a sudden now I found myself in the early days of the web, going to their website and looking what they're trying to do and how they're talking about it and how dare they?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was making like almost, I was creating little enemies in my brain with these people who were just trying to actually give me a backhanded compliment of trying to emulate what we had already done. It's a matter. It's just a matter. I think maybe age does it to us. I don't know, but it really is a matter of like
I think age does
maturity, intellectual maturity.
Yeah, I think wisdom. I think for guys, like I think women are way more mature than us. They're way smarter than us.
No doubt.
I think
no doubt
we wise up a lot later in life, but I think it's that journey. But it's true. Like I think, like I tell Gabe this. I said, you don't figure out yourself to your 30s as a man. Your 20s, you're fucking around, you're doing stupid shit.
Agree.
Your 30s, you start really figuring out what you're about. And like the 40s have been, my 40s have been awesome. Like there's been ups and downs.
But wait, you get to your 50s, buddy.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I just realized I'm like 3 years away from that.
I'll be reaching my 60s by the time he gets to his 50s. That's not fair.
Well, I ran into my fraternity brother at the grocery store the other day, and he's going to be 50 this year. And I'm like, we're that fucking old. Like, or I have a fraternity brother that's going to be getting the AARP magazine soon. Like, what? Where are we?
I
don't feel that way.
My wife never sees them, man, because I'll get the mail first, and also every time there's an AARP, it's in the trash.
But didn't people look older when we were young? Like, like people like 47, like me. I'm like, they look like they're almost dead.
It's so funny. Okay, so I'll end on this. I have this habit of like, naturally, everybody knows I journal like crazy, but I go back and try to remember through journaling where my father and mother were at the age I'm at now.
Yeah.
And then remembering my interactions with them.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And at that time, based on my journals and my own recollection, I considered my folks pretty flipping old at 58. Like, I'm like, that's my folks. Okay. They don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, is this how my kids are looking at me?
I'm starting to realize.
Like, holy shit, right?
Like, I'm realizing that. Like, I think Gabe still thinks I'm cool because we're kind of, but like Ellie, like she's my daughter, my princess. I love her dearly. And like this morning, I was dropping her off at school and I'm listening to an audiobook and I let her out. She's like, "Can you turn that down?" I'm like, oh, you're embarrassed of me. Like, and she does that now every once in a while. Like, if I'm listening to music, she can turn that down. I'm like, this music's awesome.
Oh,
This
man.
music is like my music. And she's like, can you turn it down? She won't say she's embarrassed, but I know she's embarrassed. And that's okay because I love her. But it's like, I always wonder, I'm like, how do they view us? Like, so I still think I'm 20.
Of course.
Like, I still feel like I'm 20. I still act like I'm 20.
You live a
I still-
vibrant, dynamic
I
life.
think
We
my-
take care of your health. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think about Laura's looks young. Like, we look
Yeah,
young. Like, we don't look like we're
And
almost 50.
and you live young.
Yeah,
And I
but
think
I'm like,
for 58, I live young as
Absolutely
well
you do.
too. I try to. Yeah.
but do our kids look at us like, man, you guys are some old fucks? Like, I don't know.
I think they might. I think it's a strong possibility that may be happening.
And that's a hard thing for me to deal with, man. I don't want to be
All right.
old.
This is an excellent
This
episode.
was fun. This was fun.
Yeah,
man.
and who knows what's going to happen between now and next week. But one thing's for sure, we'll be here to talk about it.
Yes, we will.
All right, friends. Thank you so much for giving us an hour tonight. We'll do it again.
Definitely.
Thanks, brother.
Yep.